It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
One just has to pick up a magazine or turn on a television to see that as women, we are bombarded daily with media images of female physical perfection, setting up the most unrealistic of expectations as to how we should look. No wonder female body confidence is falling while incidents of eating disorders are on the rise. What's most alarming is the way this affects young girls. A reduced sense of self-worth can create anxiety, stress, even depression, causing relationship issues while potentially impairing academic and job performance. In direct contrast, Confidence in Bloom is designed to reinforce the truth and reassure every woman who has ever felt inadequate, unworthy, or tossed aside because of how she looks that no matter her age, shape, or background, you matter, you are enough now. I, Tina Spolatini, a woman of substance, insist women deserve to be happy, confident, successful, and totally in love with themselves in their own bodies just the way they are. Through an ongoing series of intriguing conversations with women from all walks of life who are all extraordinary in their own right, we will embark upon a journey of ultimate self-acceptance and empowerment. Together, we'll share stories, laugh, learn, maybe even shed a few tears. When it becomes clear just how far many women have come to realize how wonderful life is when you stand in your own power, feeling fantastic in your own skin. Jamie Killian is my guest today. Jamie is a relationship coach who specializes in detoxing your life, your body, mind, and soul. She has a degree in psychology with a cognate in life coaching. She's a certified meditation instructor with 30 years of dealing with toxic people and partners. She has been coaching for over 8 years, helping women break free from toxic patterns and toxic partners. She takes a holistic approach in working with her clients, looking at everything from diet to beliefs for complete transformation. Welcome, Jamie.
Hi, thank you so much.
I love this. So you tell me, that word toxic is thrown around a lot lately. In the last 10 years, I've heard it a lot. What exactly does it mean?
Oh, girl, yes. It's like one of those buzzwords like narcissism. It's a buzzword, but there's so much power in knowing the truth of what is toxic and what is not toxic when it comes to what we put in and on our bodies or what we allow in our environment. Toxicity can be anything that is damaging to your body, your soul, your spirit, your relationship, or your environment. So that could be something like a chemical in a food. There's a big, huge push right now about the toxic foods that are being allowed and the toxic products that are being allowed into our, the current state of our grocery store systems and the things that our kids are exposed to. It can go from that, so, toxic chemicals and ingredients in our food, all the way to a deeper, more, using the word loosely, spiritual or soul toxicity, which could be, negative mindset or negative people. Those types of things can be toxic to us because it affects our energy, it affects our mind, it affects our soul. And anything really that is damaging to you or your body is going to be considered a toxin. Now, you can put a specific definition on that, but you can also be it can be very subjective, because what might not be toxic for you is definitely toxic for me. So it's a very loose term the way I use it, because when I work with my clients, I want them to understand what is toxic for me may not be toxic for them, and vice versa. So we have to discover those core beliefs and values and understanding of what works with them. But, to be very specific, anything that's going to harm your body, mind, or soul, that would be considered a toxin, in my opinion.
Okay, so yeah, well, I mean, I get that. I do get that. But then, like you said, what you consider toxic may not be toxic for me. It might be something that I need, right? So how do you, when you're working with a client, you say that you're coaching, and you're obviously coaching with this in mind. How do you come to an agreement that it's toxic for me, but it's not for you? Because I mean, if someone is addicted to bad relationships, right, then how do you make I guess that's what I'm asking. How do you make your client understand that this is toxic, that it's the relationship itself that's not serving her?
Such a great question. It's oh my goodness, thank you for asking that. Because, right, unless we see that truth and the reality of that toxic relationship, we're not going to do anything about it. We're just going to keep repeating the same patterns, because unconsciously we aren't aware. And that's really what you're asking. How can I help them become more aware of what is toxic and what is not? And right, because to them it may be like, hey, this is just normal. This is how I was raised. And by the way, a lot of times that is so true. Our childhood definitely can be a factor in the adult relationships that we choose, because that feels normal to us. That dysfunction from our childhood feels normal when we get in an adult relationship. So we think, hey, this is fine. This is just the way life is. But here is literally, the body does not lie. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score. It is a lot to read. So I like to summarize it like this. How are you freaking feeling in your body? What is your body telling you? Are you, this is a crazy statistic, and it's an older statistic. I don't even know that they may have upgraded this percentage, but 68%, 68% of autoimmune diseases are directly related to childhood adverse conditions, to toxic relationships. So if your body is breaking down, if you are having extreme anxiety, depression, lack of motivation, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, migraines, you're autoimmune. I mean, I have rheumatoid arthritis. Thank goodness it's in remission. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, another autoimmune. I was diagnosed with celiac disease. That was the pivot moment for me when I discovered what is an autoimmune disease and why am I having this? This is not, they are saying that some of it is genetic, but it's crazy the percentages of your body breaking down and you getting these diagnoses. And you're like, wait, what? Why am I getting sick? In my case, I was eating healthy. I was walking and running. I ran a half marathon. How in the world could I be getting all these autoimmune diseases? Where is that coming from? It's all from anxiety, depression, suppressing our truth, speaking up for ourselves, being gaslit in relationships, being told that this isn't happening when it is in fact happening, making you feel crazy. Everything, your body's going to tell you. Your body, that is going to be your main marker, and that's how I help my clients see why. Let's talk about why a lot of my clients come to me with severe anxiety and depression. Okay. We don't just have that out of nowhere. Your body doesn't just go, oh, we're going to be anxious today. No, there is an underlying current. Something is happening. Now, it very well could be a food. No doubt about it. We have foods that exasperate our body, cause extreme inflammation, and we can have a reaction to that food. But let me tell you something. There is a deeper root than the food. The food is made by God. It's not supposed to make us sick. So why are we getting sick? Is there something in the food, or do we have this already inflamed body because of toxic relationships and the crap that we've been fed our entire life? When I mean fed, I'm talking about mentally fed by supposedly our caregivers, or somebody who has even abused us as a child. When our body is inflamed from that type of stress, because stress causes inflammation, then when we put in a food and we break out in hives, or we have a reaction to it, the food is not the problem. It is a symptom, but the problem is we're already inflamed. Why? Okay, now let's go deeper. Why is our body inflamed? Let's go back. Let's look at your relationships. Let's look at your job environment. Let's look at your past, your childhood. Can we look at and see if there was a traumatic event? Or it could be small. His name is Gabor Mate. He is a clinical psychologist, and he is actually showing that neglect in childhood is worse than, or is as bad as, physical abuse. Neglect. Now that's huge, especially for us born in the 60s and 70s, because we're the latchkey kids. So there was times when there was no parental supervision whatsoever. There was no emotional support on how to handle our big feelings. And so we were left not knowing what to do with this, and that neglect has turned into a series of other problems. So the longest answer possible, our body is going to tell us exactly whenever we're feeling something is off. And that's why I like to lead in with my clients. Do you feel like something's off and you just really you can't put your finger on it? Like you don't know where it is, but something's off? There's your first marker. There's your first sign. Now, and then we can dig a little bit deeper, asking questions.
Right. And then the truth is, if we're really honest with ourselves, we will always, if there is something going on in our body, we will know.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
We know. We have learned.
Pain.
Yeah, I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Yeah, so we know that we have pain, right? Whether it's emotional or actual physical pain, we know that, right? And it's just a matter of being honest with ourselves, because there's lots of times where, a woman can feel sadness, let's say, but she doesn't even realize that she feels sad because she's always felt that way.
Oh, my goodness, yes. I can relate that to my celiac disease, okay? When I was diagnosed with that, I was like, first of all, I didn't even know what it was. So, of course, I did the research to figure all the things out. But I literally thought, here's my doctor asked me, like, does your stomach hurt after you eat? And I was like, well, yeah. Do you have problems going to the bathroom after you eat? Yes. Well, didn't you think that was a problem? And I was like, no, I thought everybody had that. Because for me, that was normal. Again, going back to that same thing that we talked about earlier about childhood, we felt like this is normal. We don't even understand how to express the sadness, or we don't know that we're sad because we've always been that way, or it's always been like that. That's the same concept why women who are in abusive relationships, it takes an average of 7 times to leave. And sometimes when they do leave, they go right back into another toxic relationship. It's because they don't know anything different and they think this is normal. So when we heal that root, that issue, when we get deep, and it takes time. It is a journey. There is not a destination when you're recovering from abusive relationships or toxic relationships or whatever. It takes a lot of time, and it feels overwhelming. I went through 6 months of intense therapy, and I remember going through a timeline of events, and I take my clients to this too, kind of like what were the big markers in your life that were like, oh my gosh, that happened, and then, oh, that happened. And so when you look at that, when you step back and take a bird's eye view, and it feels very discouraging and overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, I've had 50 years of this. How am I supposed to heal that? Or how am I supposed to address each one of these things? That's why things like EMDR therapy, that's a good way to deal with it, because you kind of skip having to go through the talk therapy of it all. But when you look at that, it feels overwhelming. And I remember telling my therapist, oh my gosh, and I started crying. I was like, how am I going to work through this? And a lot of my clients come to me feeling the same way when their eyes are opened, like what we were talking about earlier, when they finally see the truth that this is a toxic relationship or this is toxic in my life, and they see the truth, it's very scary. And that's also, by the way, another reason people want to stay blinded. They don't want to know that it's toxic. They want to stay in that because that means they have to make a decision if they realize and they see the truth of it. So when we see that, it can feel like too much. And I remember my therapist telling me, I'm a believer, and so I'm grateful for this provision or for this insight that she gave me. But she said, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. And then she said, but God. Because for me, I believe without faith, it's really hard to get through this life and to understand how we can get on the other side of this. We can have healing and a happy life once we get those things addressed and we see them for what they are. Can you still hear me?
I can. Did you get cut off as well?
No, okay, I'm good now. I'm good.
Okay. I don't know what happened. So let's continue with, okay, so basically what I got from you is when you start looking at what your body is going through and you realized that this is something that's been going on for, pretty much my whole life, because most of us are suffering with things that are happening really from things that happened from 0 to 7 years old, right? Mm-hmm. That's right. Most of the therapy that I've learned about is that, right?
That is correct. That is a big, huge, because it's the foundational periods of building your identity and your personality.
Right.
And I mean, it's the whole,
like you said, like that
nature versus nurture,
Yeah. Yeah, like when you said like something about neglect, right? Like children, we don't know what to do with that feeling because we don't, we've never been through it, right? And so that whole neglect, even though at the time you don't realize what it is, as you grow older, you feel it. Like you're like, oh, she's not paying attention to me, or she's just ignoring me. She's giving me this list of work to do, right? And, I'm actually thinking, I have an aunt who has just been diagnosed with cancer, and she's kind of like the I don't know how to explain it. Like everyone goes to her for advice. She's the one who knows it all kind of thing. And when she was younger, I mean, she grew up in Italy, but at 6 years old, she was responsible for, 2 or 3 other children while my grandma went and did her, whatever it was that she had to do. And I'm thinking that it's making me think of her. And is that like a form of neglect? I think it is.
It most definitely is. And I want to be really careful because, I have a beautiful relationship with my parents today. But, and so I want to say we have to give grace because they didn't know any better. What the gentleman I was telling you about, Dr. Gabor Mate, the clinical psychiatrist that is showing that the neglect is worse as physical abuse, his mother abandoned him as a young child. And he said she didn't know any better. Like, I remember my mom saying, I read a Dr. Spock book, and he told us to let y'all cry it out. I was just doing and she said now, even Dr. Spock has recanted a lot of the things that he wrote in those books back in the early 60s and 70s, and saying, absolutely do not leave your child and let them cry it out. They're obviously needing some kind of a connection, and so I try very hard not to throw too much shade, because our parents were doing the best we could, just like we did the best we could as we were raising our kids. And so having that perspective, honestly, I'm going to say this, honestly, having that perspective, that giving my mom grace, giving my dad grace, that right there is I got chills, way more healing than you'll ever understand. Because I can't hold somebody accountable for what they didn't freaking know. They didn't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's the same, and I pray that my kids give me the same grace, but having said that, now that we know, we have a responsibility to go forward with that truth and do better. Let's do better. But then also what we can do for ourselves who've gone through that. Yes, even your aunt's going through that. Understanding that neglect, she never got to be a child. I never got to be a child. I also did the same thing. I was raising my siblings. I feel like all I've done my entire life is raise somebody else's kids, and then I raised mine. And, and so that it did make me grow up really fast. And I'm sure your aunt feels the exact same way. And there was a lot of beautiful, there's a lot of beautiful growth in that. Like we're so responsible. We feel, and there's a lot of resilience even in that. I mean, we think about people who went through things like the Holocaust and things like that. Like these people are incredible people that have gone through, hell, really hell. And they come out with these beautiful outlooks on life. It is all about perspective, forgiveness, grace, perspective. Those are healing. Now, it also does not mean that is not permission for someone to continue to neglect or abuse you within a relationship, within a job situation. That's not permission. So I want to make that very clear, because I think I did, in fact, get caught up in that belief where, oh, well, I'm married, and so I need to honor God in this. The Bible doesn't say anything. The Bible specifically says that God hates divorce. I got so steeped in that legalism that I stayed in a toxic environment way too long and excused crappy behavior. So I want to be really careful not to ever let a woman think that she's supposed to be. So let's be submissive, women, and you need to stay in that relationship that is in fact toxic and abusive. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. You do not have to do that. God does not like that. And he is not okay with a man abusing you verbally, emotionally, physically, or even neglecting you. Absolutely not.
Right.
That is
right.
not what I believe. But
right.
At the same time, there's such a beautiful freedom in forgiveness, grace, and understanding. And that's where the true healing is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so true, right? And the thing is, I mean, not everyone believes in God, so it's, it's hard to say God doesn't want that for you. But at the same time, like whatever you do believe in, we are not here to be punished. We are here to show and share love and receive love. Right?
1,000%.
Right. And abuse of any kind is not showing love, even if that's the only way that person knows how to show it. Right? Because that's the way they've been taught.
And that is such a tough pill to swallow. I get it. I can empathize with the women who, because here's what I did for a very long time. I excused the behavior because I understood that the behavior was because that person was also neglected and abused as a child. And so to them, that was love. And so that was the way they were showing love to me. And I excused it for a super long time. I allowed it because I could see where it was coming from. There is a part of us that believe that we don't deserve anything better, that this is good enough. And that is not truth. And that's where I was telling you that I kind of got steeped into the belief of, oh, well, this is being a servant. This is loving them through their difficulties, et cetera, et cetera. I'm being a good, in my case, Christian woman, or a good woman by standing by their side. You're right. If you don't believe in God, whether you believe in God or not, you are not here on this earth to be subjected to abusive, neglectful behaviors. And I want to be very clear. It's not just physical abuse. emotional abuse can be super tricky, and it's very hard to understand. But if you're doing things like not bringing up an issue because you know that it's going to cause a fight, not expressing your feelings because you know that you're going to be told that you either shouldn't feel that way, or there's going to be silent treatment given to you, or there's going to be some sort of that kind of stuff is emotional abuse. If you do not feel that you can emotionally bring up what's going on within you without being received, that's still abuse. Yes, it over time, it'll wear you down. You become a ghost because you're not expressing who you are and what you need to feel within that relationship. Relationships are meant to be beautiful and like the yin and yang, it's a beautiful marriage of opposites a lot of times, and that's supposed to look like peace and safety and comfort and kindness. And if it doesn't look like that, something's off. So we have to question those things of what is off and why am I feeling this way, and where does it come from? We can go that deep, because when we get down there in that, where does this belief come that I deserve this, or that I'm okay with this, or that I need to keep my mouth shut? Because sometimes it's our stuff. You know, if we were raised in a dysfunctional family and we were taught that it wasn't okay to express our feelings, sometimes we place that on our partner and say, well, it wasn't safe for me to express my feelings as a child, so it's probably not safe in this environment. Now, if you've done it a few times and it's not well received, okay, then you have your answer. But if you're not doing it, or if you're doing it, or if you're too scared to do it, then we need to evaluate that. Why are we not feeling safe in our relationship? We need to go deep there too. But 9 times out of 10, you know that you're not feeling emotionally secure enough to share yourself, share your heart, share your feelings. So, and when you do, it's met with criticism or invalidation. The tricky thing, we talked about buzzwords. The tricky thing about a narcissistic type relationship, which is, by the way, obviously extremely toxic, there are different types of narcissism, and you can run into a narcissist who is so wise at the terms like gaslighting, invalidation, stonewalling. They can steep themselves into this knowledge, and they can trick you into thinking that's you that's doing it to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's such
we all know those kind of people.
It's so difficult for you to get out of those relationships, because you keep thinking, if I will just do this differently, if I can do this differently, okay, what if I say it this way? And it's a hamster wheel. So that goes back to, how do I feel? How am I feeling in my body when I'm around this person? How do I feel when they're not around me? Because that right there is going to tell you everything. When you have more peace when they're not around, there's your answer, you know? Okay.
Wow. That's almost hard to hear, right? Like, here's the person that I've chosen to spend the rest of my life with, and yet I'm happier when he or she is not around. Right? Because I think most relationships that, you and I are talking about are like, partners, life partners, husbands,
sure,
wives, right? Like, I know that there's other kinds of domestic abuse and, relationships like that. But I think the majority, are more like, I think because we notice it more, I'm not sure. Right? You would probably have a better idea than I would, but that's what we hear most of is, husband and wife problems, partners.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, in today's world, there's a lot more of the, domestic abuse being just partners. Oh, so I'm feeling like almost drained, right? Because I'm imagining how hard life could be in a situation like that. You know, like I've seen it on movies, I've seen it on, you know, regular TV, and it's just so like heartbreaking, right? That women are putting up with that. Like we're, you know, and we don't even realize that there's a way out lots of times.
Yes, it is very draining. Even doing this as a coach, it's very difficult for me because, and not just because I'm hearing about it from other people, but because I am an empath, so I take on emotions and other people's feelings and what they're going through. And so it is a lot. It is sad. And I know we talked about, you know, the COVID a few years ago being the pandemic, the epidemic or whatever of you know, the 2020, whatever. In my personal opinion, narcissism and toxic relationships is the pandemic. That is the epidemic of our time. It is. Honestly, I know you're saying it. You don't see it as much in certain. I see it everywhere. I cannot believe how many entitled, narcissistic people that I have toxic. There's a certain element of healthy narcissism, and we can talk about that too if you want to. But I'm talking about the toxic narcissism where it's extremely selfish, it's extremely entitled, and it's literally, it is draining in our society. It's not just in relationships, it's everywhere. And we've lost the sense of benevolence for one another, understanding for one another. And then here's what's so funny is that whenever you meet someone that is benevolent and kind and generous, and you're so shocked. I remember feeling like, why are you being so kind to me? Why are you being so nice to me? And my clients have even said that to me. You're so sweet. You're so kind. I'm really not. It's just you're used to the hell that you've been through, and it feels like icing on a cake because you've been steeped in it for so long. And you're right. It's sad. It's depressing. And the truth is, you know, there's evil all around us, and we have to choose good, and we have to choose good for ourselves, which is my hope for the women who listen to this or anybody who comes into my realm. I want them to understand that there is hope. You don't have to feel drained, and this is not the life that you are designed to live or the purpose that you're here on this earth for. It's not because you need to be beat down and you need to learn servanthood and you need to learn to be a better Christian or you need to learn to be a better doormat. No, that is not why you're here. And so that's my hope, that I am constantly pumping into everywhere I speak, everywhere on social media, anything. I want women to understand you are meant for more. Period.
Oh my God, absolutely. And you need, like, your word needs to be heard, because I think there are still too many women not hearing that, right? We hear about domestic abuse so much now, and it's so, like, you know, like I often, you know, heard myself saying, like, why are you still there? Like, you know that there are other women that are going through this that are getting out. Why are you staying? Right? Mm-hmm. But the reality is we don't realize that we are not alone, right? We think that our situation is unique. Nobody's going through what I'm going through, right? But we have to get that word out, you know, to let these women know that there is help for them. Reach out to somebody you trust so that you can get help and get out of that.
Absolutely. There's also, yes, what you're saying, you think that you're the only one. That is a kind of like a tactic they use to isolate you from friends, family, the world, that you think that you're the only one experiencing this. There's also an element that I'm finding like a reoccurring element, and it's shame. Women are so ashamed that they're in these situations. They can't believe a lot of them can't believe that it's happening, and they're so fearful of anyone else finding out because the underlying current is shame. And I follow a gentleman named Jimmy on relationships. He's on YouTube, he's on Instagram, and he does like a little funny skit pretending like he's the girl and he's the guy at the same time. And he just talked about this recently, that shame is a liar. He's a liar. Nothing good comes from shame. So you expose that shame. In other words, tell as many people as you can. I remember watching a TED Talk one time, and this woman said the only thing that saved her from her domestic violent partner was she told everybody she knew. Now the partner can't stand that. They want you. I can't believe you would tell your friends that this is how I was. I can't believe you would. And they even use the word triangulation, trying to get you to stop sharing what's going on behind closed doors. Do not do that, ladies. Do not stop sharing with your friends, your mother, your sisters. What you tell this lady said, I told everybody I knew. I even told somebody in the grocery store because I was tired and I was scared for my life. She told everyone. That right there, when you reveal that, when you bring light to that darkness, woo, that's some power right there, because either they're going to stop or they're going to leave or you're going to have to leave. So,
wow. I love that. I love that story because I feel like that's something I would do, right? Because I mean, secrets don't work for me, right? Like, I need to tell somebody. Good and bad, right? I mean, I'm an open book. I tell people that. So, yeah, I love that story. But at the same time, like, how many women are like that, right? There's not a lot. There's not enough.
No. And we heal in community. We really do. Like, there's new science out showing, new evidence showing that trauma is healed in group settings. And it's very difficult to tangibly show how that's working. But I believe, again, like, because I'm a Christian, I believe the Word of God talks about in groups of people and not, forsaking the assembling of one another. And then also, I think it's Galatians 2:9. I'm not sure of the scripture reference, but being able to share with one another, to bear one another's burdens. Hey, there's a reason for that. It's like sisterhood. It's so beautiful. Group therapy is fantastic because people understand what you're going through. It's why AA works. It's why the Celebrate Recovery works. You are accountable to other people. So, yes, sharing that with others, exposing the truth of what is happening in your life, letting other people know, hey, this just happened. And it's not like you're being a gossip. You're not trying to bring shame on someone else. You literally are holding on for dear life when you're in these types of relationships. Even if it's not physical, the emotional drain it puts on your body, the stress it puts on your body, you're hanging on by a thread. So you tell everybody you know about the hell that you're going through behind closed doors. There's healing and freedom in that. There's healing and freedom. And also, also always have a plan. If there's really something sinister happening within your relationship, be careful. Don't confront this person if you are fearful of your life, or if some people can turn on a dime. You have to be super careful. Always have a backup plan. Always have an escape route. Because a lot of times the most dangerous time in toxic relationships is when that partner has had enough and when they're leaving. That's the most dangerous time for that partner. That's when most of significant fatalities happen, right when the partner is leaving or right after that partner leaves, because they realize they've lost control. And in their sick, sinister mind, this person will think, well, if I can't have them, nobody will. So please protect yourself, ladies, and make sure that you have a plan in place. But, I think I remember being told, you just want to discredit my name. You don't want anyone to, or you want to, ruin my reputation. You want to ruin relationships. That's why you tell other people. No, I tell other people for my safety and because I need friends and I need people who can hold me accountable. Hey, do you remember that time when you said this about that person? Because here's what we do. There's this vicious cycle in abuse. It's like childbirth. We forget the pangs of childbirth. It's the same thing in an abusive relationship. You forget the hell that you've gone through whenever they start love bombing you again and hoovering over you again and telling you they've changed and telling you it will never be like that and they're going to stop doing this and they're going to stop doing that. And you think, oh, maybe this time they will. And you get back in that relationship, or you accept them back, or you forgive them this time for the 573rd time. And your friend says, hey, do you remember when your friend will say, hey, do you remember when you told me that this happened? And you remember that 2 days later he apologized. He said it'll never happen again. And look, it just happened again. That's another reason we tell others, to hold ourselves accountable. Because we'll gaslight ourselves.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think we're all guilty of that to some degree. Like, I think because we live in a dream world sometimes, right? And so we want that perfection. And so we hope that, this time he's going to make it right, or this time she's going to do what she said she's going to do, or whatever the case is. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Oh, I have to be honest, you're making me feel sad, right? I feel like these women need help and we don't even know who these women are, right? Like if they, if the neighbors came out of their, front door and said, Tina, I just want to have a chat with you. I want to tell you what just happened. I would be like, oh my gosh, but at the same time, so grateful, right? Like grateful that you feel confident telling me what you're going through. And if I can offer you any help, I want to be here for you, right? Or whatever the case might be. Like, it could even go the other way. Like, Tina, I just want to tell you, like, I just beat the crap out of my husband because he, left the toilet seat up. I think it goes both ways, right? Like, I think, because, I've seen on TV where it is the other way, where the women are beating on the men and they refuse to fight back because, they've been it's so ingrained in them that I will never hit a woman, right? I think there's a lot of that's happening that we don't even know about, right? I know that today that's not what we're talking about, but there is stuff out there that we don't know about that is very similar to what we're talking about.
Yes. It is a very small percentage, but it is a percentage. Yes, it does happen. And, it's more prevalent for women to go through it, but it does happen. And just talking about it is going to be helpful. Getting the message out that that's not a life. That is not a life to live. I mean, that's not why you're here, and it's not just about why you're here. But you don't even have peace anymore. Why? Why are you going through that? Why are you putting yourself there? And you did ask the question, like, why am I putting myself through this? Why do I allow this? And again, that does go back to, let's talk about why you are allowing it. What is your beliefs about relationships? What is it that you're believing about yourself, that you don't think you deserve something better, or that you're worthy of something better? And it is, what you just said is so tricky because it's an unseen population. It's hidden. Because we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, which is why I was so excited about the movie. I don't know if you've seen It Ends With Us. And it was very, I thought very well depicted of the undercurrent, the sinisterness of an abusive and manipulative relationship. But I feel like one thing they did leave out was the struggle that a woman goes through to want to go back to the relationship, that trauma bond. If you're not familiar with that, but it's really a chemical that happens in the brain. It is, a trauma bond is very much like an addiction to a substance. You get addicted to the cycle of, he treats me like a queen, I'm getting everything I love, and he's meeting every single one of my needs, to there is a tension building, you know that something is about to happen, then there's an explosion, then there is hell to pay, and then he comes back, swoops in again with all of the love bombing and the I promise not to do it again, and then the cycle just continues. What that does is creates a cycle in your brain of a release of oxytocin and serotonin, the happy feel-good chemicals, and then the depression. And then you want so badly to get back to that high of the oxytocin that you're willing to just accept any behavior, do anything. Let me have that relationship back. I'll do whatever it takes just to have him back. I know he'll change that cycle. It creates an addictive pattern in our brain. And oxytocin and those kinds of things are just as addictive as things like heroin, sugar, all of those things. And that creates that trauma bond with this particular person. And that's the one thing I feel like they did leave out in that movie, because that is a real struggle for women to get out of the trauma bond, because, again, it is an addiction. And if we could help women get out of that and see their value and see their worth and heal that chemical reaction that's having in our brain, then we can get somewhere, which is why I always start working with my clients with their gut health. And this, I know that seems really weird, but there's scientific evidence between the gut-brain axis. We have neurotransmitters in our gut. That neurotransmitter is just like serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin. All of those types of feel-good chemicals are created in the gut, and it passes through to our brain. So if we can get the gut healthy, we start to think clearer. We start to see things differently. We start to see their behaviors as toxic. We're like, oh my, because we balance those hormones and those transmitters out in our gut, and then our brain almost, it's like it comes online. And it's like, I'm seeing things I haven't seen before. We heal the body first, and then we go through the emotional part, the spiritual part, the beliefs, the core values. That kind of stepping into healing is what gets women out of, fight or flight, the toxic relationships, and understanding that what is so much better than love is peace. It really is.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm just so in love with this conversation right now. Like, I'm just thinking, there are so many women out there, and men, but I mean, we talk women mostly on this show, but there's so many that need help, and, they don't know where to go. And here we are again talking about heal your gut, heal your problem, right? Like, that is, I don't know how to explain what is going through me right now. Like, I want to talk to you for the rest of the day, and unfortunately we're running out of time, right? I'm just so, like, the whole toxic relationship, I mean, that's a subject of its own. But now that you're saying heal your gut so that your brain can, navigate your problem, right? I mean, that's what you're saying. And it's just, wow. Like, our gut is holding on to so much stuff for us, and many of us are still ignoring that.
Isn't it fascinating how first of all, we're a whole body. Like I work with my clients holistically. We're going to talk about your body. We're going to talk about your mind. We're going to talk about your spirit. We're going to talk about all the things, because I can't just work with one area. I can, but you're not going to get the full transformation that you're asking for. You might get away from a person, but you're just going to call in another toxic person. We got to get that body back online. And the saying, do you remember the saying, what is your gut telling you? Why do we ask people that? Why? Right? Because there's more decision-making power in your gut than there is in your brain. We got to get that going on first, so that your brain gets online, and then your body follows suit, and that we're going to take action. We're going to do the things that we need to do to get our whole life back on track. It's just like the clouds open up, clear up whenever you get that gut healed. I mean, it's phenomenal. And that's what's very fascinating, because I had the celiac disease. That is gut. That's all about the gut. When I healed that, things started changing for me. I can see things differently now. Now, that doesn't mean I don't slip back into toxic mindsets and things like that. We all have to, like I said, this is a journey, not a destination. But you get that online, you can make some major changes in your life. So
absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely. I absolutely love this conversation. I don't know what to say. I'm like just
this
so
has been wonderful.
like I
love
learn
talking
more,
about
right?
it.
I just love it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want you to just say one final thing to our listeners about the conversation that we just had, sort of not necessarily summing it up because I want them to hear the whole thing, but I want you to maybe give, I don't know, advice or something, a quote, anything, just to make them lean in just a little bit more to you.
Well, you know what? My heart I get very emotional. And you were talking about this being a heavy topic. It is. And I do love talking about it because there's freedom in knowledge. When women are empowered to see truth, then they can walk in that truth, live in that truth, and have the freedom to live the life that God designed for them or that their purpose is. I have a quote that says, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. And I have it I just got chills. I have it in my room because I look at it every single day. I feel like we just talked about this about love. Kindness is everything. If you're not experiencing that in your life, whether it's within your relationship, within your job, even within yourself, the kindness that you give to yourself, what are you doing? Stop. Because in this world, if you're not getting and receiving kindness, dude, it's not worth whatever you're sacrificing. Whatever it is that you're in a relationship for, if it's not kind and loving and beautiful, I promise you, it's not worth it. What you're sacrificing, because kindness, love, and peace is just, it's everything. It is everything.
Absolutely.
So, ladies, don't
gosh.
stay where you're not supposed to be. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is happiness at the end of the tunnel. Please get through the tunnel. Now I will say this: we go through this for a reason. I went through the hell I went through so that I can help others. So whatever you're going through, maybe that's your path because you're supposed to help others too. That actually did give me hope, because sometimes if you won't do it for yourself, you'll do it for somebody else. You know?
Right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love this conversation, and I'm going to hear it over and over again, and I will get in touch with you at some point to finish the conversation. Maybe we'll have you back on the show, just because I think, the gut health, number one, that's an episode on its own. Combining
Absolutely.
the two, who doesn't want to learn more about that? I would like to know that, right? Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So nice to talk to you.
Yes, thank you. Confidence in Bloom is a celebration of self-love, a confirmation that even though you may not look like a screen star or a supermodel, they don't even look like that. You are an amazing, desirable, brilliant, gorgeous, talented woman. We offer unconditional love to our partners, our children, our extended family, even our pets. It's high time we got out of our own way and learned to unconditionally love ourselves. In Full Bloom Styling and Coaching offers an online program combined with one-on-one coaching in confidence building, personal branding, and creating your signature fashion look. Chic definitely does come in every shape, so if you want something to believe in, start with yourself. If you'd like to be a guest here on Confidence in Bloom, contact me through Instagram at infobloomstyling, by email, tina@infobloomstyling.com, or through the Divas That Care website.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.